Ladies and gentlemen, this just in, the UFC has cooked. No more fights in the rusty tool shed that is the UFC Apex. We have UFC 313 Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev right around the corner, and this card is stacked. Much better than any rusty tool shed fight night in the Apex that should never happen again. We have Jalin versus Ignacio Bahamondes as the third fight down, two lightweight KO killers going against each other, to then move to the co-main event, staying in lightweight, just casual Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev for their rematch, and not to mention the #1 wanted fight in light heavyweight, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. This is going to be absolutely incredible, and I am extremely keen to predict and break down every single fight on this card, and also predict and break down all of the fight card awards in this card. So without further ado, let's get into the first fight of Chris Gutierrez versus John Castaneda. Now, this is a bit of a late-made fight. Literally has only just been put on the card, and the odds have only just been released. And I will say the odds are a little bit surprising in my opinion, which I will break down and analyze for you guys, but I want to give a bit more context as to why these guys have been put in so late. And that's because Chris Gutierrez, he was supposed to fight Gene Matsumoto, and then Matsumoto was brought forward to fight Rob Font at UFC Seattle, and then Castaneda was supposed to fight Douglas Silva de Andrade literally last weekend, but Andrade wasn't medically cleared. So we get this fight. Now, both of these guys, they are in shape, and it ultimately should be a fair fight. However, John Castaneda, double weight cut. That is bad news. Not in just in this matchup, in any matchup. We look at Jack Della Maddalena, for example, when he fought Basil Hafez after a second weight cut, he did not look good. He looked like trash in comparison to pretty much any of his other performances. And man, that's where I'm seeing these odds in part be a bit crazy, with John Castaneda being the favorite. Now, stylistically, it is going to be a close fight because it's a very tricky stylistic fight. Definitely a tricky one to kick things off, because we got Gutierrez. He's a unique kickboxer, uses like leg kicks and kind of like teeps as jabs, because he does have a very short reach with his hands, but he sets up his hands nicely with his leg kicks. Now, looking at Castaneda, Castaneda's a bit more well-rounded. He's more well-rounded. He throws strikes at like really weird angles, and he's also quite technical at the same time. And I'm going to say that looking through both of these guys and their performances in the UFC, Gutierrez struggles against explosive opponents that are accurate, like Song Yadong. And then we look at Castaneda. Castaneda isn't that fighter. And Castaneda, I will say, is great against power strikers, but not really that great against technical strikers, which Gutierrez is a technical striker. And this is most likely going to be fought on the feet. And if anyone is going to finish this fight, it's going to be Castaneda. He's got the submission threat, he's got KO power, he's got wrestling there as well, and he's got offbeat techniques, especially with the head kick. He is dangerous with that head kick, just really offbeat and timing it. But I'm gonna say, honestly, like, the tools that he has makes the fight close, but the technical striking, the movement, and especially the takedown defense of Chris Gutierrez, that stifles Castaneda's game, especially with Castaneda also looking at wrestling being an advantage. The guy's on a double weight cut. He's going to struggle. I mean, the cardio should be compromised to some extent by doing some form of double weight cut. It's honestly, like, that is killer. That is killer for any fighter. But Castaneda, as I said, he is a tricky guy. He's a switch stance style fighter. He's got tools pretty much everywhere. More tools than Chris Gutierrez. But Chris Gutierrez, he's the guy that is ultimately fresher, not having two weight cuts. He's fought better opposition overall, and he is the more technical striker. He's more accurate. He's really good on the outside, just really good at outstriking with high volume as well, and the takedown defense too. I think, honestly, this is going to be a split decision win. I think Gutierrez is going to be able to take this, but it's going to be close. And that's credit to Castaneda if it does go this way. But I believe that Chris Gutierrez, I think that he will start off fairly well in the first round. I think it'll be okay. Like, he will start getting the jab together quite well. But Castaneda, I think, will just be mixing up strikes and just takedown attempts really, really well in that first round to take that round. I think the second round, just a mix of Chris Gutierrez picking up the pace and Castaneda slowing down a little bit to then really even out. I think it'll be a battle of control versus volume. And then the third round, especially with that double weight cut, I think that's where Castaneda really slows down, and that's where Gutierrez is going to pick him apart on the outside and get that 29-28 decision win, winning the first and the third round. Could possibly be a 30-27 if he wins the second, but I'm going to give that one to Castaneda. Moving up the card to Ozzy Diaz versus Djorden Santos. Now, Diaz is a kill or be killed fighter. This guy never gone to a decision in his career, and not even a third round in his career. So the guy is literally just, I'm out or he's killing someone. Literally, that is it with Ozzy Diaz. And look, the guy has had some pretty tough matchups in the UFC. I mean, lost to Joe Pyfer on Dana White's Contender Series, and then just lost to Zhang Mingyang pretty badly as well. Now, that was up at light heavyweight. He's got a bit of a mix in his career of light heavyweight and middleweight fights, and I'm liking more so that he has dropped back down to middleweight. I think that that is a smarter decision. He's been more consistent there, and he's also 4 inches taller, and he's got a 3.5 inch reach advantage here over Santos, which is just good in terms of just that physical build he does have. He gets those taller advantages in that middleweight division. I think it's just better for him realistically. I mean, if he's going to make any form of move, he needs to be doing it in middleweight, because light heavyweight, it's just not happening. I think the guys are too powerful, and that weight translation when he goes up, he is just too slow. And the big issue is, regardless anyway, the guy's 34 years old. I don't really think he is UFC caliber. He's looked all right on the regional scene, like when he's gotten his KOs, when he's gotten his submissions, but even in some of the wins that he's gotten on the regional scene, I mean, he's been dropped first. Like, I mean, he's been dropped, and he comes back, and he's got good, like wrestling-based defense. He's good at framing and getting back up. But striking defense is an issue for him. And then when we look at Djorden Santos, the guy, I mean, he's coming through Dana White's Contender Series, but he is more well-rounded. He's got the submission game there. He's good at hunting chokes. And that's where I think there's not going to be a submission here, because Ozzy Diaz, he is good defensively when it comes to that ground game, good at getting back up, staying defensively aware. That's what I have seen of him in the regional scene. But honestly, Santos, especially carrying through to like the third round and on, where Ozzy Diaz has never been, the guy is very, very good. Got a good gas tank. He's got a 5-fight win streak. He's never been finished himself. And granted, if they get into a deep, heated exchange and they stay in the pocket, Ozzy Diaz has got the power advantage there. But I'm not relying on that. I mean, Djorden, I mean, he's well-rounded. He's quicker on the feet. He utilizes feints very well as well, and Ozzy Diaz can overextend. And that's where I think Santos can catch him with pretty nice, clean 2-strike combinations, which he used very well against Curry on Dana White's Contender Series in his last fight, and he's just picking him apart. And that guy is more so, honestly, an explosive striker. So that's where Santos is honestly looking really good in my eyes. And he's just got that grinder style anyway, and I think that's where he's going to be able to wear out Diaz a lot. I mean, great gas tank, just grinder against the cage, just really good within that clinch, and he can outstrike him on the feet. He's faster with the hand speed. The only way I think he is losing this if Ozzy Diaz is just able to chin him in an exchange where if he stays in the pocket too long. But aside from that, I'm going to go Santos by a decision, but this 100% could be a third round TKO KO for Santos, possibly even the second. For my bet slip, I'm going third round finish or a decision in this one for Djorden Santos. And moving up to an exciting fight, we got Mairon Santos versus Francis Marshall. Now, I love Francis Marshall. I think the guy is a very decent, underrated wrestler. He's very explosive, especially in those wrestling-based exchanges. The guy isn't a power striker, but he does have strike speed on his side. He is honestly a gritty fighter. I mean, he was catching Gomez on the feet. William Gomez, who is a very good fighter, very good composed kickboxer, and he was able to catch him with that right hand because of that strike speed down the pipe. And look, he is a very honestly, he's just a good fighter, and he had the shorter reach in that fight as well. So Francis Marshall, he's a guy that you just can't count out, and he's got the submission game as well off that wrestling base too. So he is well rounded. He does have threats there, not so much the KO threat. And when it comes to the feet, Santos, dude, this guy is special. Like, he is a damn good fighter. He comes out of Extreme Couture, and coming off that killer win against Khan Offley to win the Ultimate Fighter, dude, this guy, his striking is fantastic. Like, honestly, one of the best fighters when it comes to striking caliber under 25 that there is in MMA. I think he is just that good, that composed, just that technical with that striking, and he is very accurate. And these guys love a strong start, very fast-paced fighters as well. But if this stays on the feet, I think Marshall is going to be getting taken out in exchange. Look, he's going to, like, Marshall will literally have to mix in the wrestling successfully. And if he doesn't, like, I believe that he is going to be getting chinned in this fight. Granted, Francis has got more experience and, like, he's got more overall threats, but you can't ignore the momentum and just overall raw talent of Santos. And the guy he's just a complete sniper. He's a sniper on the outside, lightning check hooks, which I think that he is going to win with a nice check hook when Francis Marshall just really tries to get into the pocket and utilize those straight shots, just get aggressive. Santos is just too good of a counter striker. Now, if Marshall can really utilize the wrestling, really utilize it, he could get this to a decision, and possibly even a split decision depending on how well he carries it. He's just going to need a lot of control in this fight. And look, Francis is ultimately lightning fast in the exchanges, and look, he can tag Santos, but Santos's power difference is just so much more significant in this fight, and he's just the cleaner striker, and he's got really nice strikes in the clinch, which is where this fight is most likely going to be. I mean, he's got really nice short elbows. He was really just messing up Khan Offley in those exchanges. Khan Offley loves clinch-based exchanges, and he was backing off it because of how much Santos was just landing clean, and then he was at range, and if the same thing happens to Marshall and he's at range, he's going to be getting taken out. And even more to Santos's point, the outside leg kicks. The guy has brutal outside leg kicks that can stifle the penetration step of Francis Marshall to really stop the explosivity in that wrestling. And I mean, if that's the case, which I think it is, if Mairon does have that clear striking game that he just usually has, I think that he's going to be able to take out Marshall in the second round. Moving on to Carlos Leal versus Alex Morono. Now, Alex Morono, the guy is a pretty crafty UFC veteran at this point. I mean, he's had some pretty good wins in his career, but then he's also let a lot of wins slip away from him, and especially with his performances recently, especially since his loss to Buckley, he just has not looked impressive at all. I mean, he's looked so much slower, and he just does not show urgency, especially in these recent performances. And on the flip side, Carlos Leal is like the exact opposite. He looked great in literally his last 5 fights. He's looked really good. He's literally KO'd 2 of his opponents in 1 round, one in LFA and one in the UAE Warriors. And honestly, there's so much we actually can say about him, looking straight into the fight that he had with Rinat Fakhretdinov. I mean, it's arguable that Leal broke that guy's 20-odd win streak. He looked really good in that fight. He was stifling Rinat's wrestling extremely well. I mean, this is a tough battle. I mean, I completely agree with the odds here. This is the biggest split we have on the card, and I agree with it. I mean, Alex Morono, for him to win this fight, he's going to have to be able to somehow get this to the ground and then submit him, because Morono is slower, Leal has more power. Morono trying to wrestle Leal, good luck. I mean, if Rinat Fakhretdinov couldn't get Leal down, Morono does not have a chance. I just don't see it being able to happen. And Morono does have a good jab, but Carlos Leal is a very good just forward pressure machine. I think he can break through the jab pretty easily and stifle the takedowns. And then, honestly, I think Carlos Leal having his way, he's just got really nice power on the feet, 10-0 with KOs. I mean, Alex Morono's taken a lot of damage in recent times. I mean, had his jaw snapped by Ponzinibbio. Yeah, the guy is just, he's slowing down a lot, and this is a terrible fight for him to take. He is getting KO'd. Most likely, I think at the start of the second round, could possibly even be the start of the first, but Leal, he's getting the finish in this one. Moving up to Bruno Ferreira versus Armen Petrosyan. Now, this is a crossroads kind of fight. This is an important fight for both of these guys. Whoever wins this, I mean, they are really stabilizing their position to move forward, because these two guys are in that little pocket of space in the middleweight division that is just hovering around those rankings. Like, they're hovering around the outside, 33 and 45 ranked. I mean, Petrosyan literally just fought a ranked guy in Shara Bullet, and Bruno Ferreira has fought guys like Gregory Rodriguez, you know? They've had a lot of good experience on both sides, and they're kind of like the gatekeepers outside the rankings. So if one of these guys can beat the other, it's just a lot more credit to them and improvement to actually get closer to those rankings. It's a big fight for their careers, and it is just, honestly, it's a clash of styles when it comes to just the feet, because Armen Petrosyan, he's got the technical ability. Bruno Ferreira, he has got the raw power. So it's a tricky prediction to make, because you just got to choose one or the other in terms of the discipline. Now, both of these guys, they are coming off losses, which we all obviously know Armen Petrosyan's from Bullet's, you know, double back fist, but I'm liking him in this matchup with the experience specifically. He's gone against these bigger power strikers before, whereas Bruno Ferreira, I mean, he has gone against good opposition, but he hasn't gone against someone that is as technical on the feet as Armen Petrosyan. Now, that is all, you know, good said and done. Bruno Ferreira could literally just decapitate Armen Petrosyan if he stays in the pocket too long, but I'm not counting on that. I'm looking at this in just a more analytical sense rather than that just Hail Mary shot. And that's where I see Armen Petrosyan within his kickboxing game. He is good at managing distance. He's good at chopping down the body with roundhouses. He's good with his teep kicks. And honestly, the more the time ticks by in this fight, which we saw with Bruno against Abus Magomedov, the more the time ticks by, we know how much Bruno Ferreira is going to slow down, because this guy has barely been through his second and third round. He literally is like chinning everyone in the first round. But he's getting to that point where he is fighting these guys that are just more technical. They are more composed. They know how to deal with these big power strikers. And Armen Petrosyan is one of those guys. And he lands at a better clip. I mean, he's got double the volume as well. And he's very active just overall in comparison to Bruno Ferreira, especially with that body. It does pay dividends. And Petrosyan's also more defensively sound on the feet too. Now, that's where I think Bruno Ferreira ultimately, I think that he is going to get picked apart across 3 rounds. And look, depending on how well Petrosyan has his way, it could be a finish late, or it could be a finish for Bruno Ferreira with the Hail Mary early. But I'm going to go with a 29-28 decision for Armen Petrosyan. I think Bruno Ferreira can still kick off with a good first round with his explosivity. But then I do see Armen Petrosyan just really coming through with that technical ability that Bruno Ferreira simply just has not seen before, especially going into a second and third round. And that's where Petrosyan, I believe, gets the 29-28 decision here. Moving up the card to Josh Van versus Rei Tsuruya. The flyweights have been absolutely cooking, and this is another one that I think is going to deliver for sure. Like, honestly, the division is so underrated. It is ridiculous. And it's honestly, I mean, looking at these guys, one of them's 23 years old and the other one's 22. This division is in safe hands, because both of these guys are very, very good, especially for their ages. I mean, look at Joshua Van. Aside from that Charles Johnson loss that he had, which he was performing well in the first and second round, Van has been in some absolutely awesome fights in the UFC so far, and that is thanks to the technical boxing that he has. And that boxing pedigree for his age is absolutely incredible, especially translating into a sport like MMA. And then Rei Tsuruya is a now rare undefeated UFC fighter, because most of them this year, if you've probably seen in the MMA space, most of them have lost their zeros this year, which is just insane. And this guy, honestly, you can understand why he hasn't lost his. He is a transitional beast. I mean, he's got great grappling, great base there. He is extremely dangerous and versatile with those submission-based, like, just threats. Like, he is very dangerous with that. I mean, this guy can like hunt like unorthodox twisters. It's really, really impressive to see his scrambles on the ground. I mean, you look at his fight against Hernandez in his last fight, did face a bit of adversity within that fight, I will say. But Joshua Van isn't a guy that's got that wrestling pedigree that Rei Tsuruya has to deal with, that Hernandez did actually show very well. And that's where this is going to be a clash of styles. Now, Rei Tsuruya, he is ultimately the more well-rounded guy. And Joshua Van, I mean, you know, we have seen him struggle a little bit on the ground before. He has been submitted before, and Rei Tsuruya is honestly the best submission artist that he's gone against. But you cannot discount the level of experience that Joshua Van has in comparison, along with the 80% takedown defense that he has managed across his career. And honestly, if this stays on the feet, just the striking level of Van, I think, is just really going to pull through. Not only from his side of just the striking pedigree, but also the knack of Rei Tsuruya keeping that chin very high. He has a knack of doing that, and you do not want to do that against a guy like Joshua Van, who has a fantastic jab, just picks you apart and can rip the body extremely well, which Joshua Van, classic style, especially through the second and third round, I think he can do that, and I think he's going to get a unanimous decision win here, honestly. I mean, Rei Tsuruya, he lands like half of his takedowns. That compared to that 80% of Joshua Van, I'm not liking it so much. Rei Tsuruya, a bit of a hole in his game is that actual wrestling pedigree, whereas the submission game of his is really good, and the striking game is good, but not as good as Joshua Van's. So I do see Josh Van taking a 29-28 decision here. I think that the wrestling of Rei Tsuruya, just to start off with in that first round, because Joshua Van is a bit of a slow starter, I think Rei Tsuruya can really get some transitions going and win that first round on control. But Joshua Van, the guy's just fought tougher opposition. I think through that second and third round, that's where I see him really starting to pull up the volume. I think he's going to start picking him apart. He's just going to outpoint him, rip him to the body, and take the second and third round on volume to get that 29-28. Now, before I get into this, definitely check out my Rizvan Kuniev Fighter Spotlight videos that I've released. You can literally learn everything about him in those videos. Gives a great idea of who he is, his kind of fighting style, and everything in a much more in-depth video. And you got a lot more time there, about 10 minutes of time, as well as another video of seeing how he matches up against the top 15 heavyweights, including Curtis Blaydes, which is the one that I'm obviously going to get to now. And I'll say it now, Curtis Blaydes, with all the experience he has, it's not going to be easy for him in this fight, but I do believe he will be able to get it done. Rizvan is a guy who can be a top 5 heavyweight. I truly believe that, but Curtis is a tough stylistic matchup for him because of the offensive wrestling threat and that option he has, especially with how big Curtis is in that top control. Now, Rizvan, this guy is not small. He is a unit. Like, he has, honestly, he's cut down from over 300 pounds to fight in his first Dana White's Contender Series fight. That is crazy. And Curtis Blaydes, honestly, if I'm seeing Curtis Blaydes on the bottom of Rizvan Kuniev, I have more faith in him. Whereas if I'm seeing Kuniev on the bottom with Curtis Blaydes on top of him, that's where I'm getting worried. Now, Why I think Rizvan Kuniev can be a top 5 fighter though, very good striking, good forward pressure. He's got a great ability to just work people in the clinch exchanges. Dirty boxing, he's one of the best in the division easily. Honestly, he is a very good scrappy fighter. He's got offensive wrestling threats as well, and he's got a submission game there too. He's never been finished before, so Kuniev is definitely a tricky guy to get out of there. But the reason why I like Curtis Blaydes stylistically, the kryptonite is Rizvan being on his back, and Rizvan has not fought guys that are especially as good as Curtis Blaydes in the offensive wrestling department, and Blaydes has got the experience in contrast for days. I mean, there's just no comparison. Rizvan Kuniev, I mean, he fought Ferreira, I mean, in PFL, but aside from that, nah, like Curtis Blaydes has got the experience there for sure. Now, when it comes to Blaydes and that wrestling style, I mean, we got faith there. I mean, he averages almost 6 takedowns a fight, and that is impressive for a heavyweight, even if you are wrestling dominant anyway. And I mean, if Kuniev, realistically, if he goes up against anyone else, pretty much anyone else, especially below him, I believe that he wins. But this is arguably probably the worst debut matchup, except for like your Tom Aspinall. Just with that wrestling threat, it's not ideal. But I think the odds are a bit ridiculous. I will say that now. He's almost a 4-to-1 dog, and there's honestly a point where you could put some money on this. I wouldn't blame at all, because he has got power. He's got good technical boxing. He's got wrestling, and he's got a submission-based threat. He's another guy that's got a good, well-rounded offensive threat on this card. But Curtis Blaydes, with the experience and that wrestling threat and being in top control, I've got to go Blaydes by the KO TKO finish here. I think it's going to either be at the end of round 1 or around the start of round 2 if he can really slow Kuniev down and get him to the ground. But do not be surprised if this stays on the feet, Kuniev could take Blaydes out. Now, looking at the main card, we have got the man, King Green, versus Mauricio Ruffy. This is incredible matchmaking here, because stylistically, just a fucking epic fight. I mean, Green, he is just a dog. I mean, he is a beast for taking this fight. I mean, he's always in entertaining fights, but he's probably going to be a dog that's going to be getting put down. Ruffy is honestly, he's just on a roll. Like, he is a beast. He's got the physical advantages here, and that is just the tip of the iceberg with this guy. I mean, this is definitely a passing of the torch when it comes to the evolution of striking, especially in this lightweight division. And Ruffy is going to be here to prove it, without a doubt. And this is a great opportunity for Ruffy to get right into that edge of that top 15 spot. And winning this, he's getting a top 15 fight next, 100%. Now, looking at Green, he's got great boxing, and he's always utilized high volume well. That's why he's so entertaining. But the guy's just taken way too much damage in recent times. I mean, we look at him getting murdered by Jalin Turner. I mean, you're looking at a chin coming off of that, and also getting choked out bad by Paddy Pimblett. One good offbeat crack strike from Mauricio Ruffy will get this one done 100%, and it is going to happen in round 1. I mean, Green, the dude has had a great career. He's good against like your Jim Millers and your Tony Fergusons, your old guys, but put him against an explosive, unorthodox killer who's like 10 years younger and has a 90-91% finish rate. My boy King Green, buddy, honestly, you're going to sleep in the first round. Now, moving up to Amanda Lemos versus Iasmin Lucindo. Now, this is a pretty interesting stylistic matchup. I think it's good matchmaking from the UFC, honestly, because these guys 16-2 with KOs. You're not seeing that a lot in women's divisions, let alone strawweight. So, yeah, good piece of matchmaking here. And when we look at Amanda Lemos, she's been pretty hit and miss recently. She lost to Wei Li in her title fight. She lost to Jan Jadoba by an armbar in her most recent fight. And before that, I mean, she should have lost to Mackenzie Dern as well. I think that she did rob her. And look, ultimately, at the end of the day, losing to all of them, They are proper top competition. And this is the first real time she's fighting a young rising contender. And after Iasmin Lucindo beat Marina Rodriguez, which granted was close, I mean, you got to give it to Iasmin Lucindo. At 23 years old, she's cemented herself as a top young prospect. I mean, she's ranked number 7 at 23 years old. That's already impressive in itself. And when we look at these guys in age, 17 years apart, that is absolutely nuts. And that's why we can see Amanda Lemos very clear on experience here in comparison. I mean, she's fought like a lot of good opposition, pretty much all that I've named. And Iasmin Lucindo, she's fought some decent ones, but nothing like Amanda Lemos. Now, Lucindo, she hasn't faced a power striker, especially like Lemos, and literally since she was 16 years old, where she got taken out by Gabriela Fernandez, who, granted, there's credibility there because she almost basically took fucking Wang Kong's head off in her last fight as like a ridiculous underdog. So that's, you know, it's a loss that's aged well. But the thing that I do like with Lucindo at the end of the day, in comparison to Amanda Lemos, Lucindo has more options. She has more options. Amanda Lemos she's getting older, she's slowing down, and worst of all, she's one-dimensional. She is one-dimensional, and we've seen her in these grappling situations, which Lucindo is really improving with. We saw her against Marina Rodriguez, almost a full round of control time in that fight. I believe it was actually 6 minutes of control time in that fight. And I mean, if she's able to do that as to someone as technically sound as Marina Rodriguez, Amanda Lemos, the way that she's been ragdolled in fights, I would not be surprised if Lucindo can just have her way when it comes especially to the later rounds, if she can survive the onslaught of Amanda Lemos with those just big looping meaty hooks and overhands in that first round. And the thing that I really like stylistically in that sense is Lemos, when she throws those big meaty hooks, she overextends on her strikes, and Iasmin is really good at one thing, really good at body lock takedowns. And if she's able to do that and get it to the ground with Lemos overextending, she has got a submission threat there, and she's good with her control, and especially with her pot shot. She's good with ground and pound. And if anyone's cardio is going to get drained out here, I think it's going to be Amanda Lemos. And if Iasmin is smart, she's got the key to victory, which has worked against Lemos time and time again. It's securing the position over the submission with those body lock takedowns. And if she's doing that, which I believe she can, it's going to be a decision win here. I think Lemos can take that first round, just overly explosive, honestly. She is good. Lucindo's just got to survive that. And the second and third, I think that she really can turn it around and get the decision win here. But there's definitely a strong chance Lemos could literally just take her out in the first or second round, because granted, Iasmin Lucindo, she's an up-and-comer, but she hasn't fought the quality of opposition that Amanda Lemos is ultimately. So this is definitely a tricky 1-2 pick, but Lucindo, I think that she's going to be able to take it late. Moving up to Jalin Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes. This is my favorite fight of the card. Absolutely love these tall 155 pounders. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's just the fact that they've got that physical threat. They're just so tall and just like physically like menacing in the cage, and just the physical advantages they have. And a lot of people say, oh, they're weight bullies and everything like that. Brother, if you can make lightweight, you can make lightweight. I mean, come on. Like, especially with these guys and the weight cuts they're doing, man, if you're doing that kind of weight cut, fight wherever the fuck you want. Seriously. These guys, honestly, are gonna deliver. These guys are gonna deliver. It's gonna be absolutely insane. Like, I am so keen for this fight, but I also absolutely fucking hate this fight at the same time, because I do not want to see either of these guys lose. And one of them has to. And if it's going to go anyway, I'm really hoping they just lose by a decision. But that being said, it's going to be tricky because of the way these guys both fight. I mean, they are both ridiculously entertaining. I mean, we've got Turner, who went to an absolute war with Hooker and murdered Mr. King Green. And then we got Bahamondes, who absolutely starched Manel Torres in the sphere. And so he's looking better recently. So no matter what, this is going to be entertaining. And either of these guys could seriously take each other out, or we could get a crazy mismatch on the feet especially with the styles that they do have, and somehow make it to a decision. And that's where I think it's going. I do think. And if it's going to go to a decision, got to give it to Jalin Turner. Is this an easy pick? Absolutely fucking not. But my reasons are that, for one, Jalin has the experience here. He's got the experience. He's taken Gamrot and a longer output striker like Dan Hooker to split decisions that he arguably won, and was able to combat the wrestling of Gamrot in that fight. So definitely has the offensive advantage on the ground overall. And the guy, we've seen it, he can secure gillies from both top and bottom position. He is more adept with the grappling and has that submission-based threat as an advantage overall. But more importantly, he has better strict boxing fundamentals. I mean, he may have a lower output. He strikes at 5-6 strikes per minute compared to Ignacio, who strikes at 7. He's just fucking crazy. But Jalin is a bit better defensively at that boxing range compared to Ignacio, whereas Ignacio at the kickboxing range, he definitely has the advantage. So it really depends who can impose their will in this fight. If Ignacio can impose the will from kickboxing range and keep it there, he could probably knock Jalin Turner out. But on that striking point, being the better boxer and Jalin having the experience and really being able to dictate the pace on the feet pretty much in almost any fight he's been in, especially in recent times. One of the biggest things is Jalin is a southpaw. He's a good southpaw. And the last southpaw that Ignacio fought was Ludovic Klein, who outworked him over 3 rounds, really struggled with the straight left down the pipe. And Jalin Turner is even more of a tidy southpaw over Klein and has a fucking killer straight left. Look, I see Ignacio struggling to deal with those straight shots ultimately, and especially with that shot. I think that's where Ignacio can get hurt. But that's where I'm saying it's a decision, because Ignacio Bahamondes, South American brother, this guy's chin is so goddamn durable. He's 11-0 with KOs, never been finished there. He has been submitted, and that's where Jalin could find that key to victory, especially if he hurts him. But I mean, seriously, this is such a tricky one to pick. It's easier to pick the actual fighter, but man, picking the method is killer here, because these guys have 21 KOs between them, and Turner, he's got the submission threat there. I mean, they're both just absolute freaks, and especially being awkward on the feet, both fighting guys that are the same height, like they're same height as each other, it makes for awkward fights. And ultimately, I've got to go with Turner, especially with the stance advantage he does have and the grappling advantage there. But just mixed with that durable Chilean chin of Bahamondes, I'm taking a 29-28 decision here for Jalin Turner, taking the first and the third rounds. And then Ignacio, I think he takes the second, getting like the best shot of the fight. I think he wobbles Jalin Turner badly, but I think Jalin, especially with that strike defense, he can work his way back, shake off the cobwebs, and I think he can just do a good job of outlanding with the volume, keeping it safe in that third round to take a decision win. And please God, just make this a decision win for one of them. I don't want to see either of them get finished. Honestly, want to see both of them in the top 15. It's such a great fight, but this one's going to kill me. And if we weren't getting nuts enough, we're going to the co-main event of Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. Now, I'm going to complain to start off with. Please don't click off. I would have rathered the Hooker fight, which I'm sure you guys could agree with to a certain extent, but dude, it's Justin Gaethje. You just can't go wrong with any fight he has. I mean, he can fight Yanan, or he can fight Dan Hooker, or he can fight absolutely anyone. It's going to be a good fight. And look, this is a good rematch to see if Gaethje can fully bounce back, or whether Fiziev can actually finally break through and take his position as a consistent title challenger over Gaethje and overcome that ACL injury. And look, Justin Gaethje, love him. You can't hate the guy. But I've got to say, I think it's Fiziev's time. And Fiziev, look, he won't be gaining a whole lot of fans in this matchup. Hot take. Man, I think Fiziev KOs him, honestly, because I just can't get over the KO loss from Max Holloway. It wasn't even just the KO. It was the amount of damage that he took across 5 rounds to then lead to that KO. Honestly, if anyone can recover from that, it's Gaethje, but I don't think even this guy can to that extent. And look, Gaethje definitely has the chance here, but I do understand why he is an underdog. I mean, we see it's close because Fiziev, he's coming in on short notice and he's coming back from the ACL injury, but I just don't think that compares. I just don't think that compares to that KO loss that Holloway gave Justin Gaethje. I mean, I just think it's going to affect him way too badly. And Gaethje always has the power in his hands, and most importantly, the leg kicks. 100%, he was chewing apart Fiziev's legs in that first fight, which he needs to do. But most importantly, Justin Gaethje, for the love of God, please wrestle in this fight. You need to wrestle heavy. And we know the motherfucker is just not going to do it. And that's because he is a stud. He is so entertaining, but ultimately I think it's just going to be his downfall. Fiziev, the guy is younger. He is faster with the strike speed as well. He's got better strike defense too. And he was cracking Gaethje in that first fight, like fairly decently. He landed some good shots, especially through that second round. But if he's landing those shots in this fight, Fiziev's taking his chin out. I'm very, very confident in that. And the problem is with Gaethje, and he's even admitted it, and we know it, Gaethje has one speed, and ultimately that is going to be the detriment that is going to cost him this fight. And it doesn't really matter if it's switching between 5 rounds or 3 rounds. Like, ultimately it's better for both of their cardios, but the problem is the pacing going from 5 to 3 is going to be so much faster, and Fiziev being the faster guy in those exchanges. I love you, Gaethje, but Fiziev being the favorite here, I can understand it. I believe he's going to get the second round KO finish, and realistically, to top it off with a depression, I think this could be Gaethje's last fight in the octagon. And finally, after all the trash talk, we finally get this fight. The main event of Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. It is finally booked. And these guys do not like each other, and I am keen because these guys, these two, without a doubt, are the best in this division. And with that being said, this is going to be Pereira's hardest fight for sure. But I do believe he's going to be able to get this done, especially stylistically. Now, there's a lot of talk about Ankalaev's wrestling pedigree. You know, him being able to outwork Alex. I just don't really get it, though. I don't really understand where all this has come from. I'm not sure if it's just because he's a fucking Russian in the mountains, you know, like he's fucking Dagestani or whatever, and he's, you know, he's automatically got the wrestling there, which he does have wrestling, but to the pedigree of being able to swallow Alex Pereira, I don't believe so. I mean, aside from the Jan Blachowicz fight that we got to see in his last title fight, we haven't really seen anything, and even that wasn't that overly impressive. I mean, he was borderline hope shooting in that fight because his leg was minced to fucking bits. And Alex Pereira, he's consistently been training over 2 years in the wrestling and grappling department. Now, does that mean that he's going to be able to out-wrestle Ankalaev? No, I don't think so. But the main point of this is I don't see Ankalaev being able to ragdoll and just completely out-wrestle Alex Pereira. I don't see him dominating him there. Now, on the feet, in the boxing range, Ankalaev is great. Amazing work from southpaw. He uses a really nice lead hook and a good straight left as well. Good at covering distance. But Pereira, he's fought plenty of southpaws, and let's see the lead left of Pereira versus the lead right of Ankalaev and see who wins that battle. Ankalaev's got power. We know it. 11-0 with KOs, but fucking hell, Alex Pereira, we know that guy's power. Just something from God. And Pereira is winning that lead hook battle. He's just got more straight power, not only there, but overall. And he's better at kickboxing range. He's got more offensive tools. He doesn't have cardio issues as well. And worst of all for Ankalaev, Pereira's leg kicks. They will annihilate that lead leg because Ankalaev, stylistically, the way that he fights with that boxing-based stance, he is so heavy on that lead leg. And Pereira, I mean, for God's sake, I mean, if Jan Blachowicz is making him limp, Pereira is going to cut his fucking leg off. Like, I'm so confident of that. And look, if those leg kicks come in clutch in that first round, man, he's gonna be taking out Ankalaev within the first 3 rounds. I 100% think that. And even so, I mean, Pereira at that kickboxing range, the legs are just going to be a nightmare for Ankalaev, because he can do what he did to Yuri. I mean, if he makes Ankalaev so just concerned about that lead leg, Pereira can just fling a head kick up top, because we know how fast he was able to fling that against Yuri. Ridiculously fast. Like, Ankalaev is going to have to be very defensively sound, high guard, checking the kicks, Sean Strickland style, but that's no offensive output there. Like, he can't Philly shell like Sean Strickland, especially against a guy like Pereira who's got that much power and can fight on a linear line anyway. I just don't see a lot of outcomes here that it's going to put Ankalaev on top. And ultimately with that, I mean, if he's not going to be able to out wrestle him for 25 minutes and he's getting chewed apart with the leg kicks, and he's getting taken out by kickboxing range, because Alex Pereira is better than him there. If Ankalaev doesn't make this dirty, push him against the cage, and chin him, Alex Pereira will win this fight. And in all the pros listed, he's getting this inside 3 rounds. And I think it's going to be after chewing that lead leg to bits, probably forcing Ankalaev to switch stance. I mean, he can fight well out of both stance. I mean, he's orthodox. But, I mean, he does fight out of southpaw as well. But, man, I mean, he's just going to be more readable overall. So, yeah, honestly, Alex Pereira, 3rd round, KO. Now, on to the Fight Card Awards, kicking it off with the fight of the night. I'm giving it to Jalin Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes. Man, I'm so keen for this fight, and I also hate it. Like, both of these guys, amazing KOs. I mean, just their KO power, their ability with their kickboxing to boxing range. I mean, their outputs, 5 significant strikes per minute from Jalin to 7 from Bahamondes. Jalen's got the grappling advantage there. I mean, Ignacio isn't any actual slouch when it comes to the guard. He's very active there. I mean, we're going to see an amazing fight. And when you have like the power from both of them, as well as the durability of Ignacio with the strike defense of Jalin Turner, this can honestly be a 3-round, just absolutely amazing striking fight, or just a mixed MMA fight, because we've seen Ignacio against Manel Torres. We've seen Jalin Turner against Dan Hooker. These guys absolutely deliver. Now, performance of the night, got to give it to the man, Alex Pereira. I just think with his ability at kickboxing range, stylistically against Magomed Ankalaev, when it comes to that boxing, whether it's orthodox, whether it's southpaw, yes, he can fight out of both. Alex Pereira, he's just got too much power at that range, and he's got the tools to pick Ankalaev apart. The leg kicks especially, I mean, the power generation from him, especially at range. And if Ankalaev can't out-wrestle him completely over 25 minutes, Alex Pereira can definitely get this one done. If Ankalaev can knock him out, if he can just get in his face in that first round and land that shot, Ankalaev can win in the first round. But aside from that, if we're going any further, Alex Pereira is taking the win here. Now, moving on to fighter to watch, I've got to give it to the boy Mairon Santos, dude. The guy is an absolute sniper. He is a wonder kid. He's kind of like a young Anderson Silva in the way he strikes, just very calm, very composed, very technical, a lot of speed, and clearly a lot of power as well. I am very keen to see him. Love Francis Marshall, but I think Myron's just going to be a little bit too much. Now, finish of the night, sad to say it for a lot of people, ending on a bit of a sour note, but got to give Rafael Fiziev the finish of the night. I think he is going to be able to completely expire that chin of Justin Gaethje. If I'm wrong, look, honestly, I love Fiziev, but I'll be glad, because I don't want to see Gaethje get chinned. But as I said, I think it's Fiziev's time. Now, thank you for getting this far in the video, and I really hope you enjoyed the predictions and breakdown, and I really hope you enjoy UFC 313. Now, if you want to see more MMA-based content, definitely check out the video on the screen, and please like, comment, subscribe. It goes a really long way for the channel, and I will hopefully catch you in the next one.